welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined every Friday by my main man, Derek Bell. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or anywhere you get your podcasts. Yes, we are always late, but that's what makes us special. And we're here to talk Pittsburgh Steelers, Miami Dolphins, everything that has happened within this week, because you'd think that the only focus headline-wise would be, can the Steelers continue this run? It has been anything but, can the Steelers continue this run? But we'll get into all of it. It is a beautiful day here in the Berg. 80 degrees. It was 30 when I left my house, so I was pouring sweat by the end of the day. But it's been good. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good, man. Yeah, it's been cold this week, man. I don't know. It seems like at least here in Kentucky, like we don't get any type of like fall weather. We just go from like scorching hot in the summer to freezing overnight. So it's like real weird, especially like when I'm walking out of work and stuff, it's freezing in the morning. So, but yeah, I'm excited about this matchup. Primetime football. I don't know. Some of the primetime games kind of have lost a little bit of luster on me just because it feels like there for a while we were playing like 5 or 6 primetime games a year. So they're not as special as they were like when I was a kid, but I'm still pretty jacked up for this one in particular. It's going to be a fun matchup to break down.
It is definitely going to be a fun matchup. I look at this one like, I agree. I think it's a little lackluster. You kind of lose the spark of a Sunday night matchup, but I feel like Sunday nights are the only nights left where you're like, all right, this is a good football game. Almost every single time. Monday nights, very hit or miss. Thursday nights have been atrocious, especially this season. Like it's almost difficult to watch sometimes. And then Sunday nights, you're just like, all right, let's make some food. Let's sit down. Let's enjoy the time. Miami will be cool.
We had a reasonably okay,
reasonably okay is a perfect way to explain that.
we gotta be grateful about that. I was trying to watch a little bit of it on my way into work last night, and it at least was like an entertaining game, which is much better than what we've gotten for most of the season, really, on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and it's not even anybody's fault. Like you looked at these games coming into the season, you're like, oh my gosh, 7 Russ in prime time with the Broncos, who are probably going to win the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. And then it showed up and you're just like, all right, 2-4 Cardinals. Let's get it kicking here against Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. This is a great time. Or no. Yeah. Who'd they play last night?
No, they played the Saints with Andy Dalton at quarterback.
Saints. Thank you.
Yeah, I ain't ever seen that. Dalton threw a pick 6 on one of which wasn't his fault, but he threw pick 6s on back-to-back drives. It's been a long time since I think I've seen something like that.
Did you see the highlight? Did you see the highlight of him walking away and then the guy diving in? That's pretty awesome. That was a good one. That would be my screensaver for the rest of the time, probably, if I was that guy. But, Andy Dalton's been around forever. He's got the best looks in the NFL, and he's like 40 years old. So you can't even knock him. Like the guy, he's surpassed many. Most guys that are his age who's played quarterback and taken the hits have looked much worse by the time they retire. So props to him. It is what it is. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Miami Dolphins. I think this is a good way to kick this off right here. Who will be the kick returner? Dealing with 3 injuries. Steven Sims is out. Akella Witherspoon is doubtful, although he did practice this week. And James Pierre is questionable with a hip and a knee injury. The knee injury happened today. I think that it might have looked worse than it actually was. Still a concern. I would say that both of those injuries are going to make it tough for him to go on Sunday. 3 big injuries. I think Steven Sims is the biggest one. It'll be Gunnar Olszewski back there. Are you concerned? Do you have faith? Do you think that he rebounds? This is a redemption game for him.
Yeah, I'm sort of concerned just because I kind of agree with Mike Tomlin in that regard. Like once you put the ball on the turf multiple times in a short time span like that, of course you have to have some level of concern. So I mean, it's a good chance for Gunnar to kind of get back on track. Obviously, I'm not sure that he's going to need a huge game to probably win that job back, just based on what Steven Sims did last week, an 89-yard return on a kickoff, and I think a 24-yard return on a punt return. So it's gonna be tough. I think that's definitely something to watch for this week. But hopefully he can at least not fumble the football. That's bare minimum expectation.
Don't fumble the football. For a guy like this, especially for just a kick returner, like if this is how he goes out this season, this could be the beginning of the end for Gunnar Olszewski, which stinks to say. But when your job is to take punts and kicks and you fumble the football twice, that's a bad sign. Just like Tomlin said, just like you said, it's the beginning of a trend. You don't want any negative trends in the NFL. I think that everybody thought when Steven Sims popped up on the injury report that Calvin Austin would make his way back into the active roster this week and become that guy, at least for the time being, while Sims recovers. I have heard personally not great things about Calvin Austin coming back. I would say right now it's a very slim chance that he actually does play this season. I think that's upsetting, but expected at this point because he did miss so much time. I don't think anything was guaranteed for him to come back, but still at the same time, like you wanted to see Calvin Austin in a game this season, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Upsetting. I feel like just because, they picked Austin, I felt like because, the value was just something that they couldn't pass up. They talked about not necessarily needing to double dip at receiver, but they did anyway. A fourth round pick's obviously not the most premier draft capital, but at the same time, it's disappointing when you don't get anything from that, even in a rookie season, not even like, special teams activity like him returning kicks or anything. And just with the offense in general, like really struggling to generate explosive plays, that was something that Austin did a phenomenal job of at Memphis. And even if he's not a full-time player, it would have been nice if he could have contributed a couple splash plays on offense or special teams. So, but yeah, it does keep, Gunner's chances of staying on the 53 longer. Steven Sims, who knows like kind of how long he's going to be out. So at least they've got some reliable depth that they're comfortable with heading into this week.
Yeah, no doubt. It stinks that Austin isn't going to return, but if we're being totally honest, I don't think Austin was getting a helmet on Sundays, even if he did come back, unless Steven Sims started to, mess up, be less productive, whatever. But when you put on a show like you did against Tampa Bay, like that's Steven Sims' job to be the returner from here on out until proven otherwise. And that's where Calvin Austin wouldn't have come in and been the fifth active receiver on game days. You don't need 5 or 6 active receivers on game days. That's just too many. You're not going to get rid of Miles Boykin. He might be your best special teamer overall. Steven Sims is making a move for himself. We'll get into the Chase Claypool trade talk, but if that happened, maybe, big maybe, but I still say that there just wasn't a place, which is unfortunate, but I think a lot of people are going to freak out. I had some people even at the facility today talking about, oh, well, is this the end? Is this another Anthony McFarland, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I just think it's a bad foot injury. Foot injuries linger. And I think next season he'll be fine and he'll come back and he'll have a role. And they're not going to draft over him and say Calvin Austin's career is over. The dude's 5'8". Like they took a chance on this guy because they like what they see from him. They're going to give that an opportunity, no doubt.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, even if you don't get anything from him this, year, Calvin's going to have a shot next offseason to carve out a role, I think. So,
yeah, no doubt. All right. The other 2 injuries, Ahkello Witherspoon, questionable, are doubtful with a hamstring injury, did practice some. He won't go. James Pierre, questionable hip and knee, likely won't go either. You got Levi Wallace and Cam Sutton back. Both of them missed last week, so I would expect neither of them are 100%. Then you got Josh Jackson behind them and Arthur Millette playing the slot. I mean, the theme of this week was how fast can you run, and can you run faster than that, because you're going to need to.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what is the challenge here?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, Ahkello not going this week. I know he had a couple, rough weeks at the start of the season before he got hurt, but really athletically, he's the most gifted guy that they have by far. So having a guy like him in the lineup would have been, crucial against all that speed that Miami has with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Especially considering the backup, like the guys that will be playing. Cam Sutton's a good player, but not the greatest athlete. Levi Wallace, kind of struck like he's not a great mover. He's more of kind of like a size guy as well, zone coverage type of corner. And it's going to be tough matching up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I do want to give a shout out to James Pierre. He did play excellent last week. I mean, I think it was the best game of his career. We talked about last week how I thought that he was going to have a good game just because the matchup with, Tampa's bigger receivers kind of played into his kind of wheelhouse. I'm a little more concerned. Actually, I'm a lot more concerned with Miami's receivers than I was with Tampa's, just based off of matchups.
Do you expect zone? I think that's the biggest.
It's got to be.
Do you expect all zone? Yeah. You can't line up man on man with these guys.
It's going to have to be very scarce. Like if they're going to, even last week when they did employ man coverage, I think they did a good job about how they did it. They ran some like cover 2 man looks with like Pierre and Jackson playing like trail technique. So you still get that help over the top and you can kind of make quarterbacks throw like, high. And, those are dangerous throws that can be turned into interceptions. So they did a good job playing that last week, but I just don't see them being able to match up man to man. Even if fully healthy, it probably wouldn't have been a great idea, but just given corners that might not be 100%, and then you're kind of mixing and matching in the secondary. Depending on Pierre, if he can go, we're going to see like Josh Jackson back there. Don't really trust him on either one of those guys either. So it's going to be a challenge. I'm sure that Miami is looking at this like a primetime matchup for, their strength against probably the Steelers' weakness right now on defense.
So if you're Mike Tomlin, if you're TA, you're heading into this game, how are you doing this? How are you designing this defense to somehow stop the fastest wide receiver core in the NFL?
Well, first off,
the guys you have.
First off, the front four is going to need to have their best game of the season. I mean, it's going to have to be, up until TJ Watt got hurt against the Bengals, I would say like that was their best showing. Last week was a little bit better. We saw Cam Hayward kind of come alive a little bit. Larry Ogunjobi had a good game. They're going to need to be disruptive up front. I mean, the Dolphins' offensive line isn't the greatest. They have a really, really great left tackle who's, been banged up. So that matchup with Alex Highsmith will be important. But the interior is going to need to push the pocket on Tua consistently. That way you can devote more guys to coverage in the secondary. I'd probably try to mix it up. If I was playing man, I would definitely try to still stay in like 2 safety shells. And then if I'm playing zone, Tua is really good about hitting like layer and throws over the middle of the field. So you've got to be very, very careful with that too. But just trying to keep everything in front of you. And then when you do that, you got to come up and tackle. Like Hill and Waddle both have explosive tendencies, not just like down the field catching deep balls. It's really the yards after the catch. And both of those guys are players that if you miss like one tackle, that turns into like a 10-yard gain where you can live to fight another down. And that turns into 60. And you just can't, you're not gonna be able to win with that many explosive plays. So
it's tough. And Minkah, I think Minkah is a key to this one. Like Minka's got to be flying around. He's usually the first guy to the ball if it's caught anywhere. So you're going to need that. You're going to need him to be 100%. I think he would be 100%. He was definitely nowhere near healthy in Buffalo, but I expect him to be nearly at 100% against Miami. Plus it's his first time returning back to Miami since the trade. Everybody's talking about this wide receiver duo. I wouldn't be surprised if he smokes Tyreek or Jalen Waddle at least once or twice in this game. So, but I agree. I think a lot of it comes down to those safeties. Do you expect a lot of Edmonds on Gesicki? I think Gesicki's a guy that is very overlooked in this matchup. One of the most underrated tight ends in the league, in my opinion. Yeah,
the Dolphins play a lot of like 21 personnel, so they'll use a fullback. They'll sometimes use like both their running backs too, Mostert and Edmonds. They don't play a lot of 3 receiver sets, so they just kind of get really creative about how they use Waddle and Hill. And Gesicki is another guy, talented receiver. I don't even really think of him as a tight end. Like, he's not a good blocker. He doesn't really do most of his damage as like an inline guy. He's basically just like a big slot receiver. I'm comfortable with Edmonds in that matchup. The only concern for me is like when the ball's in the air. If there is still kind of like a little bit of a weakness with Terrell, it's just finding the football. Sometimes in those contested catch situations, but overall, I'm comfortable with him. I feel really good about the Steelers having their safeties back this week. Obviously, Minka's a huge difference maker as long as he's healthy, and he wasn't against Buffalo. But again, when we saw this kind of secondary against Buffalo, they didn't do a good job of keeping stuff in front of them. You know, Gabe Davis had multiple long touchdowns, one on Minka. The other, they were trying to bracket Davis with Wallace and Norwood over the top. That can't happen this week because Tua, even without like the rocket arm that, you know, Josh Allen possesses, he can push the ball down the field, and he will, especially when those guys are, you know, capable of creating a ton of separation, making for those like easy throws.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. Another big piece to this, DeMonte KZ won't be activated tomorrow, I don't believe. I mean, possibly, but I think I doubt it. But I would expect next week to be that number. It's going to be tough. It's Miami's offense is very concerning. The good part about this is that Miami's defense, I think, has some holes, and the Steelers can address those holes, especially with everybody healthy and things starting to finally click. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Pickett. Obviously, we got to talk about concussions, Chase's involvement, the whole nine. First, we got a quick word here from our boys at Manscaped. Welcome to Fresh Ball Fall. It's the season of pumpkin spice and making sure your crotch looks nice. That means sipping cider in a fall breeze and using Manscaped products to trim your balls with ease. That's right. Today's show is brought to you by Manscaped, a company here to make sure that your foliage isn't the only thing shedding its excess leaves. Heck, even Mother Nature knows it's time to lose the excess clutter for fall. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with our code STEELERS20. Whether you're brand new or already with us at Manscaped, you can use the crown jewel for your family jewels, the Platinum Package 4.0. With this glorious package, you can align your entire hygiene routine all in one swoop. Inside the 10-part Platinum package is everything you know and love about the Performance Package, plus some shower goodies included to elevate your grooming game to platinum. The Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer and Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer feature proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect your delicate parts and holes. Both are waterproof, so you can keep scaping even as the weather's changing. In addition to shaving, you can now completely upgrade your shower routine with the Ultra Premium Body Wash and Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner. You'll have your skin and hair feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. Don't forget to apply the aluminum-free Ultra Premium deodorant, and don't worry, it's not pumpkin spice. It's a cologne quality fragrance. But you shouldn't have a signature scent for just your armpits. Use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner to make sure your go-to smell is top shelf and not sweaty balls. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Platinum Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag, both specially made to hold your goodies. Get their Platinum Package this fall. These products are guaranteed to be a hit for your dangly bits. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with our code STEELERS20. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use our code STEELERS20. Manscaped. Clear out the leaves. It's your tree trunks time to shine. All right, let's talk offense. There's a question in here about Chase Claypool. Definitely want to get to Chase Claypool. I think before that, we got to talk about Kenny Pickett. Returns from concussion. He's the shortest return from a concussion this season. I think a little alarming. He didn't get into it today. He just said that he went through the protocol. They flew doctors in. They cleared him. Just overall, what are your thoughts on the concussion process that the NFL has gone through this season? Because obviously it's got a pretty big spotlight on it. And your thoughts on how quickly Pickett turned around and has been activated.
Yeah, Pickett's, we talked about this before the show, but Pickett's return from a concussion is the fastest among NFL players this season. I mean, he's the only guy that's, suffered a concussion on Sunday and then been right back at practice fully for the first 2 days of the week. So it's concerning. I mean, I think concussions are definitely something that we need to take more seriously, not just in like the media or like the coverage of it, but just as like, fans as well. So it's definitely concerning. But at the same time, they have these protocols in place for a reason. And you just have to trust that the Steelers are going to do what's best for, the player. And I think we have no reason to doubt that process. But, it does open up a lot of criticism if he does take a shot, similar to kind of Tua when he came back really quickly the following week after his concussion. So hopefully, that's, not the case, but, you just got, I don't know. It's a tough conversation, especially because I feel like the rules now, especially like with the spotter stuff and everything, are a little more blurred than they've been in years past.
They're certainly blurred. I will say this for everybody watching who's trying to enjoy a Sunday night football game, who maybe doesn't have to go to work on Monday. A great drinking game would be take a shot or take a sip every time the broadcast mentions the word concussion. You'll be hammered by the end of the first quarter, blacked out drunk by halftime. No doubt about it. Look, the concussion protocol thing is very iffy to me. I think it's very convenient that somehow you could return from a concussion in the amount of time that a practice week is for an NFL team, and that's only in the NFL. Like you play hockey. Sidney Crosby missed over a year with a concussion. Feels like that never ever happens in the NFL. The NBA is the same thing. You can miss months with a concussion. The NFL is way more vicious than both of those two sports, so it's definitely a big gray area. I can't be too harsh on the situation because I am not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree, and I don't know what goes into the concussion protocol. Only they know what goes into the concussion protocol. All I'm saying is that it's a big gray area. I am a little skeptical. But that being said, I do trust doctors. I do trust that, Mike Tomlin's not going to put Kenny out there if he thinks that Kenny's at some risk. It's not a Tua situation, which I think a lot of people are going to try to compare it to is, oh, well, Tua went back out on Thursday Night Football. Yeah, that was shady. That was very, very shady. I think we could all agree on that one. Kenny's isn't like that situation, but still a little concerning. But I'm with you. I think the whole like, oh, well, if it happens again, I think that's a big if. Like, I don't expect anybody to take a hit like that again. And I don't expect them to put him in harm's way like that.
Right. It's just one of those things that, like I said, I think it opens them up to criticism, especially given that it's a primetime game. There's going to be a ton of people watching it. Obviously, you definitely don't want to even think about that as a possibility because that's scary stuff. But I see a couple comments from like Young and Real and like people skeptical about Kenny's concussion. The Steelers, Bert is their PR guy, right?
Yeah, Bert Lawton,
Bert announced that he had a concussion, guys.
Like, he did have a concussion. I can confirm he had a concussion.
On stuff, and I'm not really sure why. The Steelers came out and said he had a concussion. I don't really get it.
No, yeah, he did have a concussion. Can confirm that one. He did have symptoms. I don't know how long the symptoms lasted, but he also said today. I asked him, I said, "How are you feeling?" And he said better than Sunday. So, he
That's
definitely was dealing with something. Like that doesn't. It doesn't. He was definitely dealing with something. And just to answer this one, because I think there's some confusion here. Tua wasn't diagnosed with a concussion on Sunday. The first time he got hit, he was diagnosed with a back injury. That's what led to all of this. And if we're being totally honest, think about how different this storyline is if the Dolphins just rule him out with a concussion in that game. We're not talking about any of it. Nobody cares because then you don't, the whole NFL concussion storyline that has just swarmed headlines this season never exists if they just rule him out with a concussion in that situation. But I agree with you. I think everything, I'm going to look at everything like everything's going to be fine. People got to trust doctors and it is what it is, but it's it's always a concern. That's a head injury. Your brain bleeds. It's not something to mess around with. Just to answer this one, do you think Mike Tomlin will consider using both quarterbacks in a game after last week? Go ahead. Do you want to answer that? You answer that one.
Not gonna happen. This is not gonna happen. I mean, this is Kenny's team, and like Tomlin, he's smart enough to know that. They've turned the reins over to him. If he's healthy, he's the guy. Now, like I said on Twitter on Sunday after the game, I think we can appreciate what Mitch was able to come in and do. I mean, the offense was not doing anything. I mean, they weren't moving the ball at all. And then he came in, he gave him a spark, helped them win the game. Kudos to Mitch. That's a huge contribution off the bench. But yeah, I mean, Kenny's healthy. This is his team. That's how we just move forward. And hopefully he stays healthy.
I'm going to ask you, but I'm not going to respond to it because I'm so over talking about it. But what did you make of the locker room fight that happened almost a month ago? That is now somehow making headlines all week long. Can I tell you, wait, real quick. Dude, I had to write about this at least 4 times this week. If I never have to hear about the Mitch Trubisky, Deontay Johnson fight again in my life, I can't be happier. But what did you think? What was your thoughts there?
My thought is that stuff happens a lot more than people realize. That's my thought. Especially Deontay's a fairly quiet guy, but at the same time, wide receivers want the football. If they feel like they're not getting the football, or they feel like they're open, they're getting missed, they're going to voice their opinions. At that level, those are the highest level competitors that we have in the sport. So emotions run high, especially like when you're a team like the Steelers who haven't had a lot of success this season. That's not even against the Jets. They were down bad. I mean, that was near. I wouldn't say like rock bottom because I think that probably came the next. Against the Bills, but it is what it is. I don't really have any type of. Is Deontay a diva? I've seen that take. Is Deontay becoming a diva now that he's got paid? Or I think we just need to let it be what it be. And, it's just one disagreement. Everybody's probably moved on. I am sure that Deontay and Mitch have, made up like they've said to the media. It's an overblown story, like you said.
It's so overblown. That's it. I'm done. That was it. That was fun. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. First off, before we keep going here, shout out our boy Donnie. Miss the heck out of you. Everybody go subscribe to his channel over there, All Cardinals. We could listen to some Cardinals talk from time to time. James Conner, he's over there. Is there any other Steelers in Arizona? I don't think so.
Kelvin Beachum.
Wow, way better than. I don't even care about James Conner. Go talk about Kelvin Beachum all day, actually. All day. Forgot about him. Wow, what a name. All right. Offensive side of the football, Kenny Pickett. I want to get into the matchup, but first, the Chase Claypool trade speculations. They seem pretty legit. I've heard from sources that phone calls were actually made, that there actually has been conversations between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Green Bay Packers. What I will say is that those phone calls didn't gain a ton of traction. I think they're still ongoing from the interpretation I got, but the initial calls weren't received with, oh yeah, let's make this happen. It was more of we have a set price that we're asking. Are you going to hit it or not? I don't know if anything's budged since then. It's also been reported, and I can't confirm this one, but it's been reported from SI's Packers Central site, so I do trust them, that the Steelers are looking for a McCaffrey-type deal, which would include multiple second rounds, a third round, and a fourth round pick. I don't even think I need to ask you that, but how big of a win is that for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and how quickly are you saying yes if that's the phone call?
Yeah, I wrote earlier this week on the site that I would not trade Chase Claypool just because I don't think his value – I think his value right now is the lowest it's been since they drafted him. Just because he's off to statistically the slowest start of his career. At the same time, if they were to get a package like that, that's a no-brainer. Just because I am realistic and don't think that the Steelers are going to be contenders this year. And I think that type of package similar to what Carolina got for McCaffrey, even though I do not believe that that's the type of package that the Steelers could fetch.
No.
But I think realistically, the best that the Steelers will probably get for Claypool would be probably a third. And I still don't know. I wouldn't, be slamming tables or anything like that if they took that type of trade. But at the same time, I don't really know that it's in their best interest either. Because Chase is a starter, and I feel like trading him makes your offense worse. Their offense is already bad. So what's the game plan here moving forward and trying to build a successful offense around Kenny? That's my question. Now, we can get into all these different hypotheticals and say like, oh, the draft capital, like I'm the biggest draft guy around, but at the same time, like the Steelers aren't going to go just in like tank mode. Like it's just not going to happen. Or should it? You've got a rookie quarterback. You need to surround him with, some type of, environment that he can thrive in. You don't want like dysfunctional pieces all around him. And that's the only thing that I push back on in terms of, should they trade him for a third or fourth round pick like was floated around? I don't know that that's smart. And like this is one of the interesting things that people are saying where they're like, well, he's only got a year and a half left and the Steelers aren't going to re-sign him. Okay, so why would you trade him? And then it's like, well, we could definitely use the draft capital. I get that, but like, couldn't you say the same thing about Alex Highsmith except better?
Oh yeah, you could probably get a first round pick for Alex Highsmith right now.
Highsmith has a year and a half left on his deal. His value's never been higher because he's the NFL sack leader. He plays a premier position. The Steelers, are they going to be able to resign him with TJ Watt being the highest paid edge rusher?
Not a chance.
And Cam Hayward and the highest paid safety and Minka Fitzpatrick. So you would get way more for Alex Highsmith using the same argument that people are using to trade Chase Claypool. That to me is kind of I think some people really are just kind of in on trading Chase Claypool because they don't like him. Like as a person, but just like as a personality, I guess. So that's just my rant on it. I don't think it makes sense.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it does make sense right now, unless you get that package, of course. But I don't think that they will get that package. And honestly, like, I think that Chase Claypool's stock is bigger in the offseason than it is right now. Because if say he does have a bare minimum, say he's got 2 or 3 more really good games in him this season, like 90 plus yard, a touchdown games, nothing crazy, but just for Chase Claypool, good games. If he does that, he's 6'4", 240 pounds. He runs a 4.3 and he's only 24 years old. So you're going to head into the offseason. Marquise Brown went for a first round pick on the night of the draft. There was no reason for Marquise Brown to go for a first round pick in the night of the draft, except for the fact that somebody saw the potential in this guy and said, we're going to take a chance on him and we're going to draft him and we're going to trade for him. And I think that teams are going to look at Chase Claypool the same way, but in a different light. He's 6'4", 240 pounds, and he could run as fast as anybody on a football field. Teams are going to want Chase Claypool. And I think that his value will stay around a second round pick come April, the end of March, maybe. You go through free agency, and then you don't have to worry about really anything. You'll have Calvin Austin coming back. You'll have the opportunity to add more receivers either through the draft or through free agency. So it's not like your roster is thin at the position without him, and you don't have to worry about tanking this year. Like, you're not giving up on the season. You're just rocking it out with Chase Claypool, seeing if his value goes up. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't, like, what'd you do? You missed out on a third round pick. Who cares? Like, you missed out on a third round pick. You're going to miss out on a lot more because, just like you said, Alex Highsmith's value is going to be ridiculous at the end of the season, but you're not going to get rid of him. You're going to walk into next season with Alex Highsmith. You're going to let him finish out his rookie deal, and then you're going to let him walk, and he's going to go get paid a boatload of money somewhere by another NFL team, and you'll get no value for him. So that just happens in the NFL. But I think with Chase, if you made a move come April, the beginning of April, I think that you, at bare minimum, are going to get the same value that you're going to get for him right now, and you don't have to worry about replacing him with Gunnar Olszewski in week 7. I just don't think that it makes sense right now. Again, unless the Packers call and they're like, we'll give you 3 second-round picks. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, no, sounds good.
It's gotta be a significant type of haul, in my
significant
opinion.
Type of haul.
To where someone's overpaying.
No, somebody's definitely got to overpay. They have to overpay for the potential that they see in this guy, for the fact that, it's Aaron Rodgers. He can make more out of Chase Claypool than Kenny Pickett has or Ben Roethlisberger has, but I would say that's so slim that that's actually going to happen. And if it does happen, I mean, good for the Steelers. Omar Khan's coming out here just firing shots all over the place and getting things to stick. But again, I just don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think that that's going to happen. But he is going to play this weekend. And I think we have to talk about the Miami Dolphins. Because like I said at the beginning of this, you look at Miami's offense, terrifying. You look at Miami's defense, they got Melvin Ingram, who's having a great season, but they do definitely have some holes. When you look at Miami's defense, Pittsburgh Steelers offense, I think that's what's going to win them this game. Where do you see the flaws? Where do you see the holes?
Yeah, I mean, Miami they've got issues in the secondary. I mean, their defense has really struggled so far this season. Byron Jones has been out with an injury. His replacement, Nick Needham, also suffered an injury last week. So now they're down like 2 of their top 3 corners. It's kind of a rough go in the secondary. I think that I don't see the Steelers running the ball extremely well against the Dolphins this weekend. But I do think plays could be made in the passing game. Miami will give you some like man-to-man, middle field close type of looks. The Steelers are going to have to push the ball down the field, though. That's something that we really haven't seen in recent weeks. Kenny's going to have to push the ball down the field a little bit and let some of these playmakers win some of these one-on-ones, particularly on the boundary. Even a guy like Xavier Howard has given up a couple big plays this season. So there is potential to get explosives off of this, Miami defense, given all of their injuries in the secondary. I like their safety tandem a lot. Javon Holland's a guy that you don't want to throw at a lot because he's a ball hawk. He's got great range, good ball skills. And I even like Brandon Jones. He's kind of like more of a box player, but I like him as well. That duo is talented, but the cornerbacks aside from Howard, I think the Steelers have the advantage there pretty clearly.
Do you, from what you saw from Kenny's first, or I guess second start, do you expect them to push the ball down the field? I felt like Kenny was throwing a lot of underneath passes.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of been the theme over the last couple of weeks. It's been a really safe game plan, and then Kenny hasn't. Even when there's been chances to push the ball down the field, he's kind of turned some of those away. So part of that's just getting comfortable to like the NFL speed. Things move a lot quicker at this level, so it puts kind of an onus on your processing, and he's got to learn what he can be aggressive with and what he needs to turn down. So. But that's just part of being a rookie. Hopefully, they'll take some shots this week. Like I said, in particular, I don't even know that I would expect Howard to play a lot on Deontay. That's what happened when they played them several years ago. Yeah. But I don't even think Howard's that good of a matchup for Johnson because Howard's more of like a big bodied guy. He's physical, long arms, but Deontay's a lot quicker than he is. So I think that they might even be able to get something there. At least underneath. So I like the Steelers matchups on the boundary. It's just really up to, kind of getting those guys schemed up down the field and Kenny, delivering the ball.
Yeah, I agree. It's growing pains, but I think that this is the week, like you need to get over the growing pains this week. As much as you could ask somebody to do so. I know that that's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation to put on somebody who's played 3 NFL, 2.5, really 2 NFL games total, but if the Steelers put him in that position, it's week 7 already. There's no time to adjust and lose a couple of games and then bounce back. You put him in to do the bounce back ignoring the lose a couple of games. I think Deontay could have a big game. I expect Pat Freiermuth to be heavily involved in this game as well. At the short underneath passes, I think could open up well. I think this is going to be a big game for a guy like Najee Harris in the passing game. Because if you could get him going and then you utilize guys like George Pickens blocking, Zach Gentry's blocking, that kind of stuff on the outside, or even, I mean, that touchdown play to Najee in the first quarter on the opening drive was, I mean, that was as beautiful as it gets. And if you could do a couple of those, I think that opens up a lot of what the Pittsburgh Steelers would like to do. It'll also open up the downfield game because you're throwing underneath so much. But I agree. I think this could be a big game for Deontay Johnson. I think he needs a big game. I think Johnson needs like a 120-yard touchdown, 7 catches type of game just to kind of like feel like, okay, yeah, he's back. This is fine. Everything's clicking.
I mean, this is a Dolphins defense that's, they're bottom 10 in a lot of important statistical categories. I mean, they're, bottom 10 in points allowed, yards allowed, haven't forced any turnovers. They've struggled in the red zone. They've struggled on third downs on defense. I mean, there's not really a ton of it's not a horrific defense. I think they're better than what they've played at. But this is a far cry from definitely Buffalo, who I think's got the best defense in the league. And they didn't even play half their starters against the Steelers.
I was going to say,
and even
their starting safety.
Yeah. And even against, even against the Bucks, who I think haven't really played nearly up to their potential, but I still think Tampa is a good tier below what Buffalo's defense is. This Dolphins defense is not close to either one of those. So I definitely think there's chances to move the ball, especially through the air.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think this is like the running game is not going to win this game. I mean, they could, but this is it's going to be Kenny Pickett for the time being. If it's not this week, it's next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, it's Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's going to win these games. Matt Canada is going to, do his best. He's going to try out there as hard as he could possibly try, and we'll see what happens. I don't know. I have good.
This comment's a good comment too, about sending Claypool down the middle of the field. That was kind of my argument with the whole trade speculation too. Like, they still just need to find a way to use Chase better. There's no reason that with his frame and athletic ability that they can't use him in the middle of the field, like up the seams and stuff. And you talk about this week against the Dolphins, a lot of middle field close, like they're going to get some cover 3 looks. Those are perfect. Seam busters up the seam with Chase or Pat. Those are throws that Kenny's going to have to, take and hit. So definitely agree with that comment for sure.
I agree as well. That's the one thing I would say with Chase is that, and you're definitely dead on, is that the Steelers' definition of a slot receiver is just so limited. It's so unbelievably limited. It's here, run 3-yard routes. That's all you're allowed to do, actually, is run 3-yard routes. And most of the time, they're just comebacks. Like, here, catch the football. Right on the left hash. That's exactly where you're catch the football every time.
Well, when you completely ignore the middle of the field like it's the plague, that's typically what happens to your inside receivers. They just get used like, borderline running backs.
Yeah, that's literally what Chase Claypool is right now. He's a borderline. He's just another tight end. There was a lot of I wrote an article. I had a Notre Dame scout that called me the night that Chase Claypool got drafted and said, "Hey, just so you know, this guy is super talented, and people tried to make him a tight end coming into the NFL. Like, that was the first thing around him." Well, we've come full circle because he's pretty much just doing that now. Outside of he doesn't really like to block, but it's like his route concepts, him and Pat Freiermuth's pretty much exactly the same. Just looking at the same stuff all the time. Don't expect anything to change. That being said, I am hoping for a win. I think this is a game changer for the entire Pittsburgh Steelers season, but they are looked at as dogs. Big, big, big underdogs. Did not expect Tua's first game back. The Steelers coming off a win against Tom Brady and the Bucs, which I told you this before the podcast. I watched ESPN every time I walked into the facility. It's on all over the place. And every time I walked past the television, all I saw was ESPN talking about, are the Bucs in trouble? How bad is this? Blah, blah. Tom Brady's yelling at his offensive lineman. I'm like, is this what the Steelers have succumbed to? Like, You lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the whole world's burning around you. I couldn't believe it. How far we've come. The Steelers right now are 7.5-point dogs to the Miami Dolphins. 45.5 over under. I think were you right last week?
No.
Nah.
Not even close.
No, you weren't. We both picked him. Yeah, all right. So we're I think you got one. I think you're one in something right now. I definitely have not won anything. So it's looking real good. 7.5-point dogs, 45.5 over under. Sunday Night Football in Miami. Minka's return. Brian Flores we didn't even mention Brian Flores in this podcast one time. Brian Flores' return. I don't even know if there's anything to talk. Do you think that Brian Flores has an impact in this game? I mean, obviously, but like
it does for Miami. I think for Miami's fan base, I think they're definitely more enthused with that kind of storyline than what Pittsburgh is. I mean, maybe some of the players, have that in the back of their mind in terms of, wanting to play hard for him,
Flores,
the game for him. I think for Flores,
are you using that? No, definitely.
Yeah, but he's a coach.
Yeah, he's a coach. So. But do you do that a little bit? Like, do you kind of like, because you're not going to walk in there and be like, win one for me, guys. Let's go. But do you slip it out there a little bit? Just like, oh, I know these, this. Blah, blah. Do you just leave a newspaper of Brian Flores fired, just sitting around the facility or something? Because I think I am.
I think the players, I think that they're aware of kind of this whole ordeal. I don't think much needs to be said kind of out of the way, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I'm sure the broadcast will talk about it a ton. So
that's the other one. Go ahead. If you want to wake up Monday morning feeling absolutely terrible, drink every time that the word concussion is said and every time that they talk about Brian Flores getting fired by the Miami Dolphins. I doubt they even show a football game. They're just going to show highlights of Tua's hit and Brian Flores in a Dolphins shirt. Easy. All right. 7.5. Let's answer this one before we do this. Which one-on-one matchups are you most interested in this week?
If Armstead plays, him and Highsmith is a good one.
Forgot to round our Armstead's over there.
Yeah. And then I would also say, I think we brought it up earlier, but the Steelers safeties against Gesicki is a good one. Obviously, defending Hill and Waddle. It just kind of depends on who's healthy out there, like if Pierre goes or not, and what they elect to do on the outside. I think it's going to be mostly Sutton and Wallace, though. Another matchup that I just briefly touched on was Johnson and Howard. I think that's going to be some really good, tape to go over following the game. So I'm always looking forward to those matchups where you get a top tier premier corner going up against the Steelers because, it provides me some, entertainment through the weeks to watch for. So
I agree. Glad that you have fun. All right. 7.5-point dogs, 45.5 over under. What do you got here? Taking out the pen.
I am going to go 27-20 Miami. I'm just going to answer this while you write your stuff down. There's a comment in here saying that Howard's not playing good. I don't know that I agree with that. I think that you have to understand what Miami asks him to do. He has given up some big plays, but there's not really anyone else in the NFL that has played probably more man coverage and press without help over top. So that to me is, you got to take that context into account. I definitely think Deontay can have a good game against him because, like I said, from a schematic standpoint, there's definitely, there's definitely some things that they can do to win that matchup. But I don't agree that Howard's not playing well.
All right, so you're going the over. You're going 27-20 Miami. This is it. This is for the whole season. When the whole season comes down to it, and we look back at this stack of sticky notes that I have sitting on my desk, it's going to come down to this game because this is the first time all season we've disagreed. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers 24-21 on Sunday Night Football over Miami.
Oh gosh. And the
I
under.
don't know. And the under. I think I'm going the under for the Steelers for the rest of time until a game has proven me wrong. I am going because I bet the over one time this season. I don't bet on the Steelers much. I bet the Steelers over against Buffalo because I was like, there's no way Buffalo's not going to put up 40 points and the Steelers got to score at least a touchdown. Nope. It was the over. So even those games, even when a team scores 30 points on you, you're still hitting the under. I'm always going the under. 24-21. I think Kenny Pickett comes out here, rides. Truthfully, I think it's a Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of day. Like he's just absolutely dominant. Alex Highsmith gets to the quarterback once or twice. The defense is it's just healthy. Like this is the first time we've seen a healthy Pittsburgh Steelers team in a minute. And I feel very good about what they're capable of doing. 24-20, praying to God that it is not an overtime game because people have work Monday morning. I do not want to be up until 4 a.m. talking about football and then wake up again in the morning and talk more about football. So fourth quarter, we're going to go 60-minute game and feel good. Make sure that you're keeping track of the concussions. I'm going to count every single time the word concussion is said. And the Brian Flores comments are going to be very, very loud. Very, very loud. All right. We're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us anywhere you get your podcasts and check out all our work at allsteelers.com. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. I'll be back on Monday with Steven. Enjoy your weekend, I guess. Peace.